Oh, you've got a narrow screen, that's why.
Okay, I started the recording. Welcome everybody to the West Side Computer Club, the August edition. Those of you may know, I've been absentee for quite some time, out traveling across our country and seeing the beautiful things there are to see, and seeing my grandchildren is also part of this destination. And now I'm back and running the meeting tonight, so I'd like to open our floor with the first question of the evening, if anybody has one. Ed, you were going to start out with a question?
Yeah, I was. Does anybody have an app that you use, one on an iPhone preferably, but it doesn't seem like there is any, to for a heat map or for telling where different Wi-Fi signals are coming from?
Like Wi-Fi analyzer, right?
Right.
Yeah, I've had it, but I don't remember the name of it right now. I'd have to go grab my phone, which has got a dying battery.
Okay. And is it on an Apple or an Android type?
Both.
Oh, okay. I'd be interested in knowing what the Apple is.
Okay. I'll see if I can dig that out.
And if you can't, just send it so you can see the spelling of my name. And my email address is ed@schweibens.net. So it's not complicated.
Well, it's also too, Zoom meetings have a chat, and we can put information in the chat, and at the end of the meeting, before we close out, you can save the content of the chat.
Okay.
All you have to do is click on chat, and down at the bottom, you can put in messages to specific people if you want, or to everybody. And towards the end of the meeting, there's three little dots at the bottom edge of the little window. You click that and you get an option to save it before the host closes the meeting.
Boy, I did not see one for Apple. I don't think Apple has decided to open up that function.
Right. That's what you said. So, but maybe they will. When I go on, there's two that I have on my son-in-law's Android machine. One is, let me bring it up here. No. If they would only make Androids more like Apple's, it'd be so much easier. One is Wi-Fi Analyzer, and it looks like, let's see if I can bring it up here. It has a little, no, it's not very clear. I don't know, if I take a picture of it, can I then put it on I can put it in here, right?
You could put it in the chat.
Okay, I will. I'll do that. Anyway, so they came to our complex and did a heat map for the whole place, and not every apartment, but a lot of them. And it involved walking. He had supposedly a $7,000 piece of equipment that he walked through and did readings of the Wi-Fi signals that were coming here. So, but I haven't seen any results of it yet. But I'm just trying to learn more about it.
There's an app on the iPhone called Coverage Map, but I don't know if that's what you wanted or not.
Okay, I'll look
And
at it.
basically, it's supposed to show you a map that as to where signals are stronger or less, if that's what you wanted.
I put in the chat one that I have on an Apple called Net Analyzer.
Okay, and I think I have that coverage map. Okay, I'm getting that.
All right, again, I don't know how good it is for what you want, but you can check it out, or at least look it over a little.
Right, right. So I've been debating whether to get rid of Comcast or not. But right now, if I'm correct, I'm on, I just want to see the system. Yeah. I'm on a full duplex Wi-Fi system that the apartment has, and they just added this new one. We used to get approximately 10 down and maybe 2 or 3 up, and now we're getting about 12 and 12. And I'm doing this Zoom call on that.
That's pretty
So
good.
That's
it's
pretty good.
working. Yeah, it's working pretty good, which I'm surprised that it's as good as it seems to be.
Have you done a speed test on that lately?
Yeah, it's 11.7, 11.7,
Oh, that's good. That's
and it doesn't cost us anything.
right.
I can go up to, I think, 25 for $10 more. And it used to be when you clicked on their resident Wi-Fi, it would say unsecured network. Now this one doesn't, and it doesn't do that on my Apple devices. It recognizes it as a secure network. And what they've done is they made it for each apartment is going to have, it was that you have to have your devices register with a MAC, and now they're just going to give us an 8-digit code and with a PSK. And when we do that, then we can have like my printer is Wi-Fi. I can put it on that, and from anywhere in the confluence, anywhere in the complex, even though I'm on the Wi-Fi someplace else, I can connect to my printer if it's on and print stuff off. So
That's good. Have you tried that?
no, I haven't yet. I'm going to.
Okay. Is that a 2.4 and
No, it's 5.
it's a 5? Is your printer on 2.4 or 5?
I'm not sure.
It's probably on 2.4, like many printers are.
Right.
Now, the reason I asked that question, because I've experienced the situation where if I am on the 5 gigahertz network in my house, I cannot print to my printer at all.
Oh,
If
really?
I switch to the 2.4 network, I can then print to the printer.
Right.
And Tim is shaking his head yes. So, Tim, you want to enlighten me why this is?
That's because if your devices don't speak on the same frequency, it's like having foreign languages. If you don't know how to speak it and comprehend it, it doesn't work.
So that the router is not routing it to the 2.4 from the 5?
No, they're
Okay,
independent. They are independent.
that's why. So Ed, your mileage may vary, but I recommend you test that function. If
Right.
you're
I
on the
will.
if you're on the 5 gigahertz, can you print to your printer that's on the 2.4?
And it's supposedly both 2.4 and 5.
Your
That's
printer?
normal. That's normal.
Are you saying your printer is, or?
No, I'm saying the Wi-Fi network is supposedly both.
Right.
Yeah, that's normal, as Tim had said.
That's that's a very normal thing that you have both frequencies. Down the road,
Actually, by using that Wi-Fi analyzer that I have on my son-in-law's Samsung, I can see that on the 2.4, it does list the Wi-Fi that I'm on. So it is 2.4 and 5. Anyway,
I have a question on this topic line.
sure.
Will both those networks, so let me see, how do I rephrase this? So does the 2.5 and the 5.0 provide different IP addresses?
yes.
Okay, so then, yeah, your machine may not go from one IP address to another. Yeah, that would be a problem. Thank you.
Interestingly enough, we're getting Ancestry.com library edition here. Now, during COVID in 2022, the library made it available to the people of Wheaton through just log into the library and they let us use it. You didn't have to go to the library to get it. And we've been pursuing getting it here. And it turns out there's just one external IP address for everything that goes out on the system. And so when we sign up with the library edition of Ancestry.com, it'll just have one IP address. But we actually have two different feeds into the system so that if one of the fiber optic that comes into our complex goes out, they could switch over to another one. And I just recently got that second IP address. So when we sign up, if you're on either one, it'll allow you to access it, which is kind of nice.
Well, by the way, Sanford, just so you're consciously aware of it, you have two Bobs in here now.
Do what?
I'm listed as Bob Premax, so that should not be an issue.
That's
Yes, but if we normally go by Bob, which one are we talking?
Okay, which one of us is going to be Rob for the evening?
no, whichever you like. We'll just include Bob B and Bob P.
Well, we've had Bob Baxter before in meetings,
Yep.
and it never was an
Yep.
issue.
This is true.
Yeah, but I know
Work
about
it
it.
out.
I know about it. Sanford's just getting back, and he may not be that aware of it. That's why I'm.
Oh, so this is FYI thing.
Yeah, this is just an FYI for my ignorance and stupidity. How's that sound?
Well, welcome back anyway, Sanford.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you want to know why I'm late, I dozed off.
Hey, it's okay. You can do that. You know,
Yeah.
you start getting a little aged in there. You can do that.
No, I'm actually recovering from a bit of food poisoning the last couple of days.
Ooh, my daughter had that yesterday, so that's not good to hear. Gotta stop eating those bad strawberries, whatever it was.
No, I was at a potluck supper where people were grilling, and the burgers did not get cooked all the way through.
Oh,
That was Sunday.
that was Sunday. Yeah.
2 days later, oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay, let's go on to something a little more pleasant.
Yes.
Let's see. We're still in the question and answer period. So soliciting for questions from the group. Actually tonight, since we don't have topics, it's just going to be all over the place. So, but who has another question they'd like to present to the group tonight? We heard from Ed.
I would,
Okay.
if I could think of one.
Oh, okay. Well, one will pop into your head. How about that?
I'm sure it will.
All right. Let's see what we've got here. All right. Anybody else got questions? Nothing for the group. Everybody's computer's been running fantastic. I don't believe that.
I wouldn't go that.
Yes,
I
Jim.
wouldn't say that for sure.
Jim, what do you got?
Okay, I have a question. I've been helping Fran Sass sort out the massive computer hardware that Jerry has.
Oh boy, good luck.
Yeah, you can imagine. You walk in Jerry's little computer room, and there were 8 desktops visible. It turns out there were another 3 laptops in various places. There were 2 camcorders, 4 or 5 cameras, quite a bit of stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so in going through a box of hard drives, it appears that they are mostly backups. And most of the drives, you look at them and he's actually printed out the top level folder that's on a drive.
Okay,
And there, what you see are a number of hardware items like Jerry's laptop, the Dell 8700, a number of those kind of things. You open that folder, and I don't remember whether it's the first folder down or the second folder, but you get a folder that's called Acronis.
Mhm.
You try to open the Acronis folder, it'll let you open it, but it won't let you look at any files.
right.
And I looked up Acronis on the web, and apparently they used to do backups, and now they do backups and encryption and malware and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
So I guess my question to this crew is anybody a experienced Acronis backup person? If I have some questions that I would like to ask, that I could send email to?
I used to do a Cronus years ago, but I didn't like paying the ransom annually for it. So I switched to free software, and I know what he was doing. He had an Acronis account, and that's what it's referring to. Hopefully, he did not encrypt the backups. But if you don't have Acronis software for backups local to your machine, you probably cannot see the content, and you cannot restore the content without the proper software.
That's what I was guessing. And
Jim,
go ahead, Sanford.
first thing, were you able to find his latest primary machine that he was using? Or to,
I think I know which one was his latest primary machine.
I would, specifically if it's a laptop or a desktop, it was probably a desktop. Because I know he had one desktop that was his primary that he used. More than likely, he has Acronis loaded on there with a license affiliated with that. Hopefully that will work for you to be able to open up or uncompress these files and review what's in there.
I wouldn't bet on it.
No, I'm just giving him a possibility.
I understand that. The reason I said butted in on it was the fact that he has been gone a long time. The license is expired. To be able to use the Acronis software to look at what is out there, he has to have a licensed version.
Okay, so let me get to part two. Number one was what I suggested was to check his machines and see if one would physically work. If it doesn't, if the worst case scenario would be you'll get a pop-up saying the license is no longer valid, you have to buy a new license, which indicates what Tim was saying. The best scenario is he'll be able to explode or open up those folders for you. When I had gotten the hard drive from Fran for CCS, he had used Acronis for that. I ran into the same problem that I wasn't able to open up these backups that he had on there. And what I determined the best scenario was I downloaded a trial copy of Acronis, which was valid for, I think it was 10 days, 14 days, maybe a month, but I don't think it was that long. I downloaded it, installed it, and it was able to then view all those files and uncompress them. What I did was uncompress them and put them onto another drive or moved them to another location so they were uncompressed and usable. Then after I was done, I was able to delete the Acronis software and move on from there. That was my workaround from the hard drives that I got from Fran.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
And it may very well be that we don't need access to that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it's probably ancient history. Jerry was, as you know, he was a digital pack rat. And he was, as I was digging in, he was phenomenal at note taking and details on everything he's done. When I started digging into this stuff, I just couldn't believe the detailed information that he had either written down or in a file that told you everything. Like you said, printouts that would tell you everything that's on that drive. You know, he was very detail orientated. Bert?
What I was going to suggest is based on dates, you may be able to see which computer he used from what year that drive is connected to. Then you might already have the Acronis stuff, not with the current version, but already built into one of his older computers.
That could be too. Yes, he had, like you said, he's had many computers, and he probably had Acronis loaded on most of them. And back in the days, it used to be he used to have that license and it didn't expire. I don't know. Tim?
Yeah. Well, he had a latest desktop and a latest laptop. So I got two places to look for something that's up to date. But I'm guessing, as Tim said, he's been gone long enough that it's probably expired. But your trial idea, that's sort of what I think I need to do is figure out whether we really need to get this stuff or not. And then make sure I know which stuff I want to get when I get the trial, so I have enough time to
Right.
get
Right. And that's, you want to utilize your time that you have that trial active. Of course, you can always download a new trial version on another machine.
That's true.
Okay, and start the clock ticking all over again. And when that's done, delete it. Tim?
Jim, one thing, if you're masochistic enough to go through all that stuff, from 2020, I'm going to say April or May to September 2021, if you find any OBS studio recordings of meetings, we might be interested in getting a hold of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Bob?
I'll watch it.
Hi, man. Bob.
Yeah. Two things. First of all, there's a little wrinkle in that Acronis, any one version can usually only see or only open backup files or Acronis compressed files within a certain range of versions. Anything too much older, you won't be able to open with a current version. And that could be a bit of a complication if stuff is older. The free trial won't be able to help in such a case.
Okay.
If you're lucky, the stuff is recent enough and the version you have goes back far enough that you'll be able to see most of it. I wouldn't worry about it if it's anything since about 2020.
Yeah, my guess is the older stuff. We've got the latest laptop and the latest desktop. So older stuff probably doesn't matter anyway. None of his kids seem to be interested in this stuff, and Fran isn't going to use it. So the key thing was like photographs. But what I'm finding is Jerry had a zillion photographs. Fran doesn't remember who some of the people are, and from way back when, stuff like that. Nobody's going to recognize them anyway. So I have a feeling that it's not going to be a big issue, but I wanted to have some strategy if I need to do it.
Some of the photos that I ran across on the drives were the grandkids growing up, or even back to his kids growing up. So, you know, you may tread delicately on what you're not going to purge it, but I would recover photos. He also had an extensive audio collection for music collection. You could ignore that.
Yeah, I'm not going near that. That's
Right.
the other side of the room.
Right. And I don't know anything of, I didn't see anything with financial records on there, but he probably has that in in the backups you have.
Well, Fran and one of his daughter-in-laws said they have found the financial stuff that they
Okay.
need.
Good,
So I think they've got that part squared away.
good. Okay. All right, so I hope that helps you on with that.
That's great. Thank you.
Jim, you could always reach out to me if you think something might be CCS related.
I've got a couple of trays of stuff that's labeled CCS.
Okay,
Most of it appears to be from the website. And I had the impression you guys got everything for the website.
right. But feel free, but Jim, if you see anything, you have my email or my number, call me. You know I'm not far away. I'm only 20 minutes away from Fran's house. I'd be happy to come over and help you with that.
Okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
All right, that's good. All right, great. Next question, new direction.
I got a question.
Yes, Rick.
I had to download a file from OneDrive, and it turned out to be 42,000 photos. It said that when I first went onto the OneDrive, I never did this before, but in the center, it shows like a main photo. And then if you click on that photo, it will download all the photos. So I did that and put it onto my PC. And this was something that somebody sent to me.
Okay.
Then I went to go put it on a thumb drive, and it said I needed like 6 gig. So I took a 32 gigabyte thumb drive and went to download it. And I figured, well, I could just go back to OneDrive and download it straight to here. Well, now the OneDrive only showed me all the photos. In other words, I basically would have had to hold the button down and click on every one. So I evidently lost that main area to where I could download them all at once.
I think Bert has his hand up. Bert?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, what you may have done is you had a shared file and you may have been zipped. So when you brought it in, it was all the pictures were in the zip file. Then when
Yeah.
you opened the zip file, it unloaded all the pictures. And so
Correct.
it may be that you're looking for the zip that you originally got that was in the shared folder in OneDrive.
Yeah, I tried to do that because I went to go put it on the thumb drive, and believe it or not, the way I had to do it was basically when I went to do the zipped and put it on a thumb drive, it told me the thumb drive did not have enough space. However, the thumb drive was 32 gigabyte, and it was only almost 6 gig that I had to download. So
Maybe the pictures open up or something, that it doesn't know the sizes until it sees the pictures.
Right.
okay, so I turned around, and what I wound up doing is clicking from the first picture to the last picture, and then put them over to the thumb drive. Well, that was great, but it took about 7 hours.
Mhm.
So I
Of
do have
course,
all of them.
you have to be careful when you're getting stuff from other people through the shared folder, because
Yeah,
of
well,
course you're still
It's somebody
connected.
that I knew. Yeah, it's somebody that I know. So
Was Rick, you said you downloaded all 42,000 to your PC?
yeah, but they were zipped.
Okay,
Then
wait.
I unzipped them, and they're in a folder, but it's a zip folder, and then I click to open it. That's
Okay,
all.
how big is that folder?
It's not even 6 gig.
Wow, they
Five
must
point something.
that must have been low res. It doesn't matter. So you can't
Right.
take that folder and move that over to the thumb drive?
I tried to do that, but every time it wanted to open it up. It wouldn't just let me take the compressed version and send it over.
Okay.
You have to unzip it before you can use something that way in the OneDrive
Right.
like that.
But just
Right.
as an FYI, zip does not compress photos very well. So at best, you might be saving 2% of the space
Yeah.
by zipping the file. It's just the carrier. It's like an envelope to put it all into, to
Right.
move it around. But by
Well, I didn't zip it. OneDrive did that.
okay,
It made one folder and everything was completely zipped.
okay. But I'm
And I
just saying,
couldn't-
there's no advantage to a zip file of photos other than making it easier to transport.
Well, yeah. Well, basically, yeah, the person needed to get it from one computer to another, and he wanted to get it off of that OneDrive.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm pretty sure I have OneDrive on my PC. I mean, you know, it always wants to put crap everywhere, if you know what I mean? So, but I did get them off. Like I said, it took about 7 hours. And what I couldn't understand is it told me that there was only under 6 gig, 5 point something gigabyte. But yet when it was compressed and I would try to do it and bring it over, it told me I don't have enough room on the drive.
Ed?
Yeah, I had a question. So I can see 9 people on my screen, and if I take away myself, I can only see 8, and there's a block. How do I see the rest of the people?
Scroll right.
There's only 10 people at the moment in the meeting. So you're only missing 2.
It says 13 participants down at the bottom.
Yeah. Is there an arrow or a triangle anywhere
I don't see any.
for
You just need to
continuation?
scroll across your screen, across your screen.
He is on a Mac, so things look a little different there.
Yeah.
Right.
There are 3 people who don't have their cameras on. 4 people don't have their
And
cameras
they
on.
may not be shown in the first group. There
And
may
that's a
be
Zoom
another
meeting.
note.
In Windows, that's
I'm
a
in the
Zoom.
car driving, so my camera's not on.
Ricky, mute yourself. Bob?
Yeah.
Primack?
First of all, zip behaves kind of strangely, especially when you're downloading it from an internet source. Both Google Drive and OneDrive use zip to collect up all your photos that you're downloading into one file. And how that file size is determined by the operating system can be really wonky. You don't know how much space it'll take up on a drive until you start to decompress. Then you start to find out just how big it is. And 42,000 photos sounds to me like it's a lot bigger than 6 gig.
Yes. That's what I thought. I thought that would be pretty low res pictures that were on there to be 42,000. If each photo was, 2 megabytes, that's going to be 240. That's 2.4 gigs. Well, I guess that's not enough. Most photos are about 5 megabytes. So 42,000 times 5. Hey Siri, what? That's a lot. It's a lot.
That's only 150,000.
Is it? Quick, who's the mathematician in our group?
I'm looking at the properties of a typical JPEG, and the size is anywhere from 200 kilobytes up to a couple of megabytes per picture.
Usually
as much as 4 megabytes.
Right. It depends on the compression that was used and if they're JPEGs, but the low end is in the kilobytes and the high ends is usually about 5 to 6. They 5 and up. If you got a 20 megapixel camera, they're going to be much bigger.
Right. But in any event, I'm not surprised it took 7 hours to get onto a flash drive if there were 42,000 files. Just decompressing and copying that many files takes an eternity.
Flash drives are slow, and then they need to write to the root, the root part of it, and then put the file in, and then double check it. It's just a really USB sticks are usually slow.
The transfer rate that he got was approximately 6,000 files per hour, and 6,000. Let's be generous and say it's about a total of maybe 12,000 megabytes, which is 12 gig, maybe a little bit more. And 12 gigabytes to transfer to a flash drive. You'd have to be talking USB 2 speeds or slower to make it take 7 hours.
Yeah. It depends on the machine he was using, both the CPU processor, its speed, its caches and buffers, as well as whether it was USB 2 or USB 3. Because USB 2 is half the transfer rate of USB 3. And that makes a significant difference when you're talking big transfers. And that was a massive transfer.
Big transfers or large numbers of files or a complex file tree. Those all add to the time. Unless you're using a program like Terracopy, which speeds it up tremendously on some PCs.
Yeah, but it won't overcome a slow processor or USB 2.
Right, either the I/O or the processor.
Yes,
But everything that Rick is saying sounds like it is within the realm of reason for that number of photos.
right. Bert?
I think, you have to also consider what OneDrive does. And you're working in the cloud. It's very slow to, it's not the same thing. It's got to perhaps redo its directory on every file you're moving. It's there's a lot to go from OneDrive downloading, not to mention decomposing or recomposing the picture bits.
Yeah, there is the fact that OneDrive, unlike Google Drive, syncs to your computer. And so it may be having to resync. But that's not the problem Rick ran into. It wasn't the download. It was loading it onto the flash drive.
Correct.
Yeah, I would just say you ran into I/O issues and rearranging the files.
I would have to agree because the computer was not a very fast computer.
So you'd be best off to load it locally to from OneDrive to your PC, and then move it from the PC to the USB stick. I don't think it's going to go any faster though, but that's an operation that you could do. At least then you got everything.
True. But it's done, so.
Right. Next question, new direction. None. All right. I did hear something today on the news. They were talking about fake Amazon reviews that are out there. And the discussion is when you go and buy products on Amazon and eBay, there's a large percentage of the reviews that are actually affiliated or put into the files or into the product description, what I was saying, like people's reviews. And they found that many of them are actually paid people that are that have written reviews to post something. They came up with a calculation that there's up to 40% of the reviews on Amazon are fake. Not a good number. So a company came up with a solution using AI, and it's called Fake Spot, FAKESPOT.com. And you can download, I will share a screen, but just give me a second. You can download, let me share the screen. Right here. You go to fakespot.com and you can download a plugin that will go into Firefox, and it will use AI to help you detect. It's not a perfect thing as most AI is, but at least you could use this as a tool in your toolbox. It's free. It didn't seem to give me, I just loaded it in today. I didn't see anything in there that looked nefarious, but you never know. So I will show you a product review. let me hold on. I don't think this one showed up, so let me try this. Here you go. All right, and I'll move this out of the way. So I just looked up something, a digital multimeter. And what FakeSpot did in Firefox is over here on the right-hand side, above where it puts the price of the item, it will give you a review analysis and a grade. I don't know if this is a great thing or not, but I think this is something that could be used. Let's see, somebody wants to come in. Bear with me, I gotta let somebody in. Terry's coming in. So I just thought this might be something to use as a tool in your toolbox. I've been searching for many different things over the courses of months for stuff on Amazon, buying stuff, and you just wonder, okay, is this a good review or is this not a good review? When you see so many with 1 stars and too many with 1 stars, you're like, what's going on here? Some of this stuff gets really long-winded. Then you're wondering, oh, I never write a review, but then they write a 3-page review on a product. So this may help with that, sorting through some of the stuff that's out there. I have not tried this on eBay yet. I just installed this just before this meeting. So someone else want to give this a whirl and let us know at a future meeting whether or not they found this to be beneficial. And again, it's called fakespot.com.
I've used it for maybe about 6 months now.
Oh, so you've heard about this, Rick?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I use it a lot because you'll notice that the very first, maybe the first 5 reviews on anything on Amazon, now not on eBay, but on Amazon, that are bogus. I mean, to me, they're bogus. They're just not. They're just not correct reviews, and you can even see sometimes even in the spelling. But every product is the best product. It's always the best, the best, the best. Until you get it.
Until you find something that's not, like this multimeter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whose multimeter it is.
I don't know either. And again, this was just, I was looking through products and trying to find one that didn't have a good review, and I found one. So
well, it is a digital multimeter. So what more can, for $15, you could probably get it cheaper at Harbor Freight.
Right.
But what are you using it for? You know what I mean? Continuity, voltage, see how batteries are, or
also this is it's telling you about the review analysis.
Yeah. Okay.
We got hands up, Bob Primack.
Yeah. As with all AI, there is a certain probability you can associate with whether or not it's likely the review follows a pattern that is repetitive, that is frequently seen, or whether the words are not fitting together correctly, or whether it's just too similar to other reviews. But you can never really know that it is in fact AI generated or fake. And you can never know whether somebody was paid for the review. It's just like trying to determine whether or not students have cheated on their term papers. Even if you see their notes, they might have generated all that by AI. But all you can ever say is there's a certain probability that it was not original work. And again, there's a certain probability these reviews fit patterns that are known to have been fake and have been proven fake. You certainly can identify spam emails that way. And this is one of the heuristic methods that the email providers use. They have AI in there.
Tim?
Yeah, offhand, I can't even remember how many years I go back, I never look at any review that's 4 or 5 stars. I always look for the 1s, 2s, and 3 stars and read them as to why it was a bad product, something you want to avoid. And most of the time that gives me good guidance as to whether I would be interested in pursuing that product or forgetting the product. And they're more real than any 4 or 5 star reviews because there's so many fake ones.
But also on the other side of the coin, there are people that purposely go out to bring down a product's rating because they want you to go to somebody else's product that's out there. So they'll post these fake negative reviews on something, and you start reading it. And what I found when I was searching for stuff, I was reading so many negative reviews on products that I never could determine what was a good product because too many people didn't like everything I was looking for. And I never could make a decision. So it just seemed to bite me in the butt. I Bob Primack?
With the negative reviews, two things. You can very often screen out the ones that are just being petty or the ones who didn't understand the product. If it's a tech product, the ones who didn't understand its use or applications, the ones who bought it thinking it was something it wasn't, even though it never said that it was that in the description. And once you filter, sometimes patterns will show up as to what people didn't like and the numbers, the percentages. If I see more than about, maybe a 20-25% negative reviews, 2 and 1 stars, and I see another product that's got maybe 5% negative, I figure there's probably something to that. I don't care how many 5-star or 4-star reviews there are. How many negative reviews? How many people said they returned it or they couldn't use it anymore?
Right.
And were they all complaining that the same thing was wrong, or is it all different stuff?
Right.
The more diverse things that were wrong with the product, according to people, the more likely it is there really was something wrong, and that
Right.
it isn't just the same people saying the same thing over and over.
Right. I find, yes, you're correct, Sanford, that you do get people creating negative ones to steer you to something else. But for the most part, for me anyway, I've only had a very small percentage of items I've looked at 1, 2, and 3 star on that I said, no, thank you, and look for something comparable to it. But for the most part, everything that I did get based upon my analysis of 1, 2, and 3 star, I did buy, and I was very satisfied.
Ed Schreiber. Schreibitz.
Okay, so I just want to tell you while you were talking about these reviews, I hooked up my printer and it works fine.
Oh, good.
So I was able to print off what you had sent me about the link tonight for this, and hopefully now that when I moved, by the way, I moved last June, and June was when my membership expired, and they didn't have my new address, so I couldn't get in for a month. But anyway, and hopefully now I will continue to get the links.
Bert will make sure that you're getting the links for the meetings.
Okay, great.
Right.
Anyway, and I wanted to tell you one other thing. Granted, I use Apple. Every time I tried to connect one of my Apple devices to this new network that we have, it came up on my phone and said, do you want to add them? Which was really nice because I didn't even have to put in the new password.
Oh,
I just said yes, and it did it. So
Be careful. Is that Wi-Fi Direct that's being used?
Pardon me?
Is that Wi-Fi Direct that's being used?
What do you mean Wi-Fi Direct? I don't know what
that. Wi-Fi Direct is, or WPS.
Yeah,
WPS. Is that?
That's dangerous.
You should have that turned off when you're not using it to set things up.
Right, because WPS has been proven to be a big security problem at with hackers, etc., being able to do things with your printer, whether you like it or not.
Oh, really? So how do you turn off Wi-Fi direct?
At the router.
Ah, he
I'm sorry,
And
what?
he probably doesn't have access to the
doesn't
router.
have access to the router.
Right, I don't.
What
So
kind of a
it's-
network is it where there isn't access to the router?
It has to do
It's a
with
controlled,
process.
it's a controlled, in my community.
Oh,
And-
it's community.
Yes, and it used to be that it said, unsecure network on my Apple devices. And now it doesn't say that anymore because it's unique to my apartment.
So there is a unique password for your apartment.
Oh, yes, very unique.
Okay. Then probably your best bet is at the device. Or yeah, at your devices, you may be able to have them not use WPS. It might have to go device by device in your case.
Okay. Seems to work fine for whatever reason. All right, thank you.
Of course, there is another possible solution, though it's not cheap. You could put in a hardware firewall to serve your apartment or your living unit.
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea of doing it, and I don't know if you heard it in the beginning, we were getting on this service 10 download and like 1 or 2 upload, and now it's full duplex, and we're getting 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, 12 and 12, and I'm on this call on that, and everything that I'm doing on it seems to be working fine. So I think I'm going to drop Comcast if I can continue to do that. Why pay Comcast for something that I don't need?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
you're doing the right thing by using this, but it's a question of how can you keep your network private and secure. And
Well,
there
according
may
to the people that are putting in this new network, it is private and secure just for my apartment.
well, of course they're going to say that, but technically it may not be so private and so secure.
Just
So how do you determine if it isn't?
I defer to Tim on that.
At the moment, it's been too long since I played with WPS. I have disabled it on my routers because I have access to them. And that's a standard for me, is to turn off WPS at the router. And that way you can press the button on the printer for WPS hookup, and it just sits there and says, I can't talk to anybody because the router will ignore them. And I don't remember if there was an easy solution around that. My solution, and this is a very honest, I don't care who you are, if you have a printer that is not a USB printer, but a Wi-Fi or an Ethernet connected printer, I always go to the printer and set it up with a static IP address, whereas the default is DHCP, which means the printer talks to your router, the router gives it an address, and the bad part is the address from time to time can change, so you cannot talk to the printer. When you have a static address, that's like your mailing address or your phone number or your email address. It stays static forever. And that way there are no lapses because the IP address from the DHCP changed.
Right. Now, one thing when I went to set up the printer, because it's not an Apple printer, it did require me to put in my apartment unique to me password. I couldn't use PSK for it. On the router that I have from Xfinity, it has a PSK button on the top. But if I get rid of that, then I don't have that problem. It's just that things that I hook up, I have to put in the, and on my these Samsung that I borrowed so that I could run some of those net analyzer things. Anything that wasn't Apple, I had to put in it uniquely. But because all my Apple stuff is tied to my Apple user ID, it allowed me to give access on my iPhone.
Right. It's just a case where printers, because some of us rely upon them so much, especially like if you go into the hospital, you go away visiting relatives somewhere, etc., or a week or more vacation with a regular DHCP address. It says, hey, you're not here. I'm giving that address to somebody else when they want it. If you set up a static address on the printer device, it stays exactly like a house address or apartment address, and it will never change. So you once you set it up, you give it authorization for that device at that address, and it won't care from now till the end of time.
Thank you.
This is an old trick for printers, and businesses do this all the time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I got to go. My wife's telling me I've been on the call too long.
See you though, Ed.
Have a good one.
Okay.
You do.
Hey,
All right. I think we covered that. Does anyone have any other further discussions on this topic? Does anyone use? Go ahead.
yeah, there is one thing more. The question then becomes, in a setup like Ed was having, where you have a shared connection essentially, and you don't control the router, so you can't turn off things like WPS. Then the question becomes, how useful are software and hardware firewalls? And is there something you can set up to make things more secure?
And I don't know the answer to that one. Anyone?
I only know a partial answer to that. And firewalls, on this one machine, I play with the firewall, and it bites me in the butt constantly because some of the software you install on your computer changes some characteristics from time to time, and something that worked yesterday suddenly today don't work anymore. And almost invariably, I go check my firewall, find out it's saying, well, I'm blocking this because I don't recognize what it's trying to do. Then I have to set up new rules that allow that to occur. But there's tons of stuff that are trying to go through the firewall that I'm at least partially blocking.
But you're doing that at a router level, correct?
I'm doing it within a software router within Windows.
Within Windows. Okay, so what product is that?
Well, see, all Windows have a firewall. The firewall is anemic. It's only checking the inbound stuff to your computer to try and block bad stuff, which I don't know. It depends upon the security people as to whether that's doing a good job or not. But I added an addition to that firewall that governs the outbound. And it's a copy of it was bought by Malwarebytes. It's called Windows Firewall Control. It's made by, I think it's Bingsoft or something like that. And Malwarebytes has a version of the same thing. It will give you no filtering outbound, or you can change it in the profile to low filtering, which will stop some things from occurring, especially like if you get infected with malware that's taking your contact list and sending out bogus emails in your name. Then there's medium and high. I've never tried high. Medium gives me enough headaches. That one you're going to have to train it on a case-by-case basis, and you have to expect that from time to time, some of the software changes and suddenly something is partially blocked. You have to go in, look at the settings and allow certain ones to go through, and it takes care of the rules needed for the firewall. And it stops an awful lot of crap from going out, probably even some of Microsoft's telemetry information they like to collect, and possibly Google and Amazon and God knows how many other outfits. But it's something that is doable within an individual machine. But it's something you got to have patience with. You also have to have kind of a mentality that you're not going to let it beat you. You're going to beat it every time, one way or the other. And so when something doesn't work, when I finally remember, hey, I got the firewall control, I got to go in on this machine and I've got to play with looking at the settings and so forth, I would find out, oh, the reason why it's not working is because it's being blocked. Now I got to say, in this one instance, unblock it. You have to also understand there are two protocols in the internet. TCP/IP, which is secure, and UDP, which is unsecured transmissions. Sometimes you are using in a piece of software without your knowledge both protocols, and it's one protocol that's being blocked while the other one is okay, and you can't get whatever it is you want done completed until you say, oh, it happens to be the UDP that's being blocked. Well, I'll unblock it, and suddenly whatever the application is, it works. It's insane. And I do some other things as well that most people would not have the patience to do, because you've got to train it. But it stops a lot of garbage from interfering with you. I have additions to the browsers that will block out a lot of garbage that comes through the internet to your computer. And most people wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole, simply because it's too much of a hassle to them and they don't want to mess with it. So I don't usually bring it up.
So the one you use is from Malware Bytes, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Is
And
that,
you may have to dig for that sucker too. It's not readily open where you can spot it real easy and download it and use it. It's a free piece of software.
oh, it's free.
Anyone else have a suggestion? What about using a VPN?
It
Since
wouldn't
he's-
apply to WPS.
No, it
No.
wouldn't.
But since he is somewhat, it's kind of like a public network that he's on, is it not?
It's shared.
Some-
It's a shared connection.
It's a shared connection. So
Right.
and the discussion was, how do we know whether it's encrypted or not? I would assume that it's not encrypted unless he's doing banking. Then he'll have an encryption from his browser to the bank, but that doesn't mean it can't be intercepted by somebody in between. So
Well,
that's why
yeah.
I was wondering, would a VPN be a better course?
Well, that's a double-edged sword question. Let's go on the one side with a VPN. That goes from your device out to a server before it goes to the internet. That stops the man-in-the-middle type of attack where they harvest your information. Usually because you are trying to attach to a public network. You think it's like McDonald's, Starbucks, etc. But in reality, it's somebody in that store own computer where they renamed it to make it look like it's McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever. And you connected to their computer, which is connected to the internet in some fashion. And everything passes through their computer that you're doing. So the end result, they can see everything you're doing, passwords, user ID, and what account the online account is with. So they know everything you're doing. That's one issue. Now, he originally said that he had an unsecured Wi-Fi situation. That's deadly, but most of his online accounts are probably governed by SSL. That is an encrypted service that most reputable businesses with an HTTPS beginning address do support, and that's going to be governed by that entity. So if you go to Amazon, I guarantee you, you're going to be on an SSL link, the same as if you go to your bank account and transfer money, or you pay bills online, et cetera, et cetera. But the other side of the coin on this party line situation that he's in is he has some limited capabilities. So he's probably protected now because it's supposed to be a secure internet connection. Therefore, there's SSL involved. They're using probably WPA2 or WPA3 security levels. You got the SSL in place when he's going to accounts that have the HTTPS beginning. So most of that is fairly secure. And it's somebody involved with that community that he's now living in that's responsible to prevent the man-in-the-middle type of attack. So a VPN may not give you exactly what you think you're going to get. I think that covers
I
most
think
of
we
it.
covered that pretty good.
Yeah, it's a real serious pain in the butt, all this. And security is being ramped up almost daily because of all the garbage that's going on. Zoom has now got some extra security in it that we've recently discovered. And there have been other Zoom meetings I have attended with other groups that have been bombed, just like in 2020. Zoom had a lot of bombs going off. That means somebody who was a bad actor broke into the meeting to disrupt the meeting. And this was a big problem with schools where they were doing remote learning.
Knock on wood, we've had zero issues with that problem.
That doesn't mean that it won't happen.
I mean, it won't happen. That's
We
right.
have had people we couldn't identify in meetings, and we couldn't get them to communicate with us.
This is true. We have had that, but at least nobody's bombed us, photobombed us,
Yeah.
or did anything nefarious to our group.
I was in one that did.
Anyways, shall we go on to a new topic? Good. Has anyone played with Wind Toys?
Wind Toys?
Yeah.
A little bit, but I haven't had time to get to it much yet. Most of the Wind Toys that they brought up in an article, I think I sent you a copy, I've been using for quite some time, but not all of them, because some of them just, they're not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's similar to other products we've used, and I will show you the screen. I did load Wind Toys on, and you can see what this looks like. So when you start the product, you know, it's kind of bland looking.
Yeah.
You know, it just gives you some goodies here, tells you about the processor usage, network, you know, your name of your PC, what type of processor you're using, yada, 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 yada. We've seen all this before.
Okay.
I don't remember if you click on something, does it tell you anything? No, it doesn't tell you anything. Like I'm looking on processes, it tells me there's 247 processes, but it doesn't let me do anything with it. Let's see what the next thing was. I don't remember. Okay, so this I think is the apps that are loaded on my machine. And the next one would be, so it says I got 115 apps on there, how much RAM they use or storage. So you know, this is similar to other products that we've used that
Yes.
tell us, you know, what's loaded and running and analyzing what's on our system. It's kind of neat where you can turn some of the things on and off through here.
Right.
So your mileage may vary with this. You know, cleaning up, I haven't used this part to clean up my disk space or create restore points. I haven't played with this much, just like you, Tim, but it's there. Here, change the startup menu. I guess we can include Bing results. Oh, I definitely don't want that
Oh, why not?
because I'm not a Bing user. I have never been.
Well, the bad part with the start menu is the search feature. And most of the time, you're getting some kind of web links to take you to some article or some product out there trying to sell you something.
Right.
And, so that's one feature that I like turning off because it is an irritant. It takes time to pull in all that stuff that you don't need, and you're just loading your system with a lot of additional garbage.
Ads, let's see, you can suggested content, we could turn that off. Oh, lock screen fun tips and tricks. Oh, what do I need that for?
Yeah, I know. Some of this already exists right in Windows settings
Right.
and task manager and system monitor. Between the three of them, I can do almost everything that's here. So this is just another way of accessing it. And that's the problem with computers. There is no one way of doing anything on our computers.
Right.
There are umpteen friggin' ways. And it's bewildering. What way do we do it? Well, each one of us on here, right now there's 12 of us, there was 13. You could have 13 different ways of getting anything done on the computer. And we're all sitting there scratching our head as each person says how they do the exact same thing with the same end results, but they do it in a different manner.
Right. Everyone got quiet.
They
Come on.
went to sleep. We went to sleep.
Well, the Win Toys, I just brought it up because I loaded it on, checked it out, said, oh, this is interesting, but I don't know how interesting, or is this something we could really use?
I've got another toy that I found out about. It's in beta, but I'm going to save that for the Southside meeting.
Okay, you do
Yeah.
that. That gives us something to look forward on South Suburban.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any new products to talk about? Or software or anything they stumbled upon? Because we're running out of content for tonight's meeting. Anyone played with Raspberry Pis these days, or is that just a Linux SIG thing?
No, actually, Raspberry Pi is more for inventors, and I've come across an article that there's been the part shortage, so there has been no Raspberry 5 as yet. They think maybe next year they'll have Raspberry Pi 5. However, so far, the market for Raspberry Pi has been for education, for tinkerers, for entrepreneurs that are trying to make smart devices, et cetera, et cetera. There is real concern at the moment that they may restrict it to industrial boards. So the current general availability of Raspberry Pis may start diminishing, but that's speculation. It's not a given right now.
Right.
I haven't played with my Raspberry Pi in so long, it's not funny. I don't have enough time. I'd have to stop sleeping.
Yeah. Has anyone gone back to and played with ChatGPT or Bard or one of the other AI type softwares recently and put it
Yes.
to a certain test?
Yes.
Yes, Tim, you have.
Yeah. I found out about a new one, and it's so far giving me good impressions. You're not going to like the name of it per se, because it doesn't give you the idea that you're dealing really with an AI directly. It's called Claude, CLAUDE, add a .ai, that's the address. And one of the main purposes of Claude is when you have how-to questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? And the ones that I have put to it so far have been quite illuminating. I had one recently that I had a problem with. It gave me 6 possible solutions. So I did 1 and 2, those failed. Then I did 4, 5, and 6, those failed. So I didn't want to do number 3, but I finally had to do number 3. And it turns out to have been the answer to the problem.
Learn about Claude. Outputs AI according to the set of principles and goals of making a helpful, harmless, and honest AI assistant.
Now,
Okay.
here's the thing. All you have to do is put in an email address, but you are live for only so long. If you, after a certain amount of idle time, it may knock you off. It's going to send you an email to that address that you put in with a verification code that you paste in, and it will then give you access.
Okay.
I don't use the Google account.
Go ahead.
I do a straight email to a regular account.
I could test this later on, but that's a new one, Claude AI.
Yeah.
Anyone else tried any new ones or played around with this? Nobody. James, come on. You've got to have played around with something with ChatGPT. What are you doing with your off time?
Don't have any.
You don't have any. Okay, I'll take that.
Boy, if you want no time, I can fill up your time.
I got enough.
Terry Moy, have you played with any ChatGPTs? You're muted, just so you know.
No, no, like a lot of things I haven't gotten around to.
Well, I will say that my wife had found it very valuable for writing home descriptions.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, in the MLS, you got to write a small little part of description, and she used ChatGPT every time she's needed to do something. She's been using that.
Wow.
And she's found it's not that she's asking it to generate the entire content. She'll come up with majority of the descriptors that she wants to use and then plug it into ChatGPT and tell it to rewrite it. And she'll pick up parts of it, most of it, but never entirety. But she'll pick out aspects of it that she really liked, and how it phrased a certain sentence. Because you get, as you probably know, in the when you start writing these a lot, property descriptions, you get burned out. I mean, how many times can you say spacious? This is a spacious, beautiful home. Okay, well,
That's true.
okay, so it means nothing. But if you put it into an AI software that's written for using conversational language, like those are, you'd be surprised what it gives you in return. So maybe you should learn how to do this,
Thank you. Thank you.
or at least show your wife. You know.
Oh, well, yeah, I know shortcuts are always good, you know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we tend to use the same words all the time. Yeah, it's just, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any topics they'd like to discuss?
I have one, but I don't know how much time it might take. How many of you currently are on Windows 11?
Ooh, 3. You got 4. I know you are, Tim.
Yeah.
And
So,
we can't see hands from the people that don't have video. So
Right.
those people that have Windows 11 that don't have video, can you raise your hand? There's a little button on there that says raise hand.
If you're on a regular full-size screen, it says raised hand. If you're on a laptop tablet, your screen is so small, you'll see more on the right side of the center icons. You click that, and in there you'll see raised hands. Okay, I'm assuming nobody is on 11 outside of 4 of us.
Right.
Now, my next question is, since we're barely over 2 years until Windows 10 dies, how many of you are planning to move to 11 before 10 totally dies?
Oh,
It'll
Then
be
you ain't gonna use a computer, Terry.
For me, it'll be when I buy my next machine, it'll have 11 on it.
That's, well, now that means you're thinking within the next about 26 months, you're gonna buy a new machine with 11 on.
In all probability, in my case, yeah, I probably will.
Okay,
I use the office machine, and we have no, you know.
bottom line
We'll
is,
probably stay
when
on
10
10 until,
Terry, when 10 dies, you have no more security. Every day that goes by and your CPAs puts you and all your clients at risk. Period. No ifs, no ands, and no buts. You better start thinking outside the box and think of your clients.
well, we'll have to address that later.
In anyway, now one of the prohibitions, well, actually, there's 2 key prohibitions to a lot of people not going to 11. One is how they've changed so much, and our software, all the software, the operating systems, the applications, they're all enhancing more and more things as the computers become more and more powerful. Therefore, people call it bloatware because they keep getting bigger, 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 and bigger. Now, that's number one, and people don't like the way things keep changing even within 11, and it's only been out a little over 2 years now. Now, the other one is the hardware cost because of the stringent factors of trying to run 11 as a supported person. may cost you having to buy a new machine. That's not necessarily always a bad thing, but there's a lot of people that have a limited budget that they say, I can't afford it. Well, I disagree. The other thing is I am running right on a machine right now that's got 11 unsupported. The machine is circa 2008 or 9. So I can do it, but it's not for everybody. It's really a potential headache for getting the upgrades. And I'm playing with that right now when I get the time. But on supported, I have found that there is tons of business hardware that has come off of leases or businesses that went out of business, and the hardware is available. You can get some of this stripped down so that you get the box, maybe the power supply, not always, no CPU, no memory, no SSD or spinning hard drive in it, and someone will put in there no OS. Well, if you haven't got a storage device in the computer that you're buying, you ain't getting an OS. It doesn't matter, because anything that has been manufactured, I think 2013, it might have been a little bit before that, there is a chip on the motherboard that has your license in it, so that all you have to do is download the proper OS from Microsoft, put it on a flash drive, install it on your computer, and instead of saying activate with a license after a couple days, it will be licensed digitally. Now, aside from that, I have bought as a unit, there are people that live in an apartment. In a manner of speaking, looking at Terry Moy's picture there, it almost looks like he's in an apartment versus a house, okay? And let's assume that that is an apartment that he's living in probably by himself, okay? Very, very limited space for having a computer, let alone more than one computer, like me. There are what's called SFF computers, small factor format. Now, the general dimensions are pretty much close to a standard desktop, except one of the dimensions. This is an SFF computer. What's the difference? Now, looking at this for the length and width of what you see there, it's about the size of a normal desktop mini computer.
Right.
That's where the difference comes in. It's about 50% thinner. It gives you a lot of ability to have the computer in a smaller space. But you're talking, you have to have a monitor, you have to have a keyboard and a mouse, and those can be wired or wireless. Next, there are a smaller generation, actually two smaller generations of computers. Now, Bob Premick, who's got his hand raised, has what's called a NUX. Those are the more recent ones. They're about 6 by 6 inch squares that are anywhere between 1 inch and about 3 inches thick. They're pretty good, but new ones are kind of pricey unless you can find a used one.
I think
Now,
Bob's trying to show us his. There you go.
yes, that's a NUX there.
Bob,
That's a
let's Bob
6 by 6. That's a 6 by 6 that he's got there.
5 by 5.
Oh, it's 5 by 5.
My hand is about 4.5 inches wide.
Well, they're 5 by 5 or 6 by 6.
4.5 inches wide for my hand.
Now,
And
is that
That's
enough?
the main box. These are all peripherals.
There's lots of different manufacturers. That's what I'm trying to bring up. Some are
This is Intel, and there are several others. Some are a little bigger.
yes, and that's what I'm getting across. Now, between that NUX And between an SFF, there's another class of computers that are still being used by businesses that have 4 different definitions. So you're going to have to bear with me. Some of them call it a mini. Some call it a micro. Some call it an MFF. Some call it a USFF. They are probably about 8-9 inches wide, maybe about 8 inches deep, and maybe a couple inches high at most. They're much smaller than the computer I showed you, and bigger than what Bob showed you that he has. Now, why am I bringing this up? Business computers, unlike consumer computers, are built to a higher standard, and they have longer life. Many of them come with TPM already in them. The key is getting the right one to make a Windows 11 compliant computer. Now, with HP Elite Desk 800 and I think 705, generation 4 or higher, that's a G4 or a G5, etc., are 11 capable. You have to get your own CPU chip. You have, in most cases, your own memory cards, which are usually laptop SODIMMs, and you have to have your own spinning hard drive or SSD. They handle an M.2 NVMe, and some of them will only handle one in that format. And SFF might handle 1 or 2 such M.2 drives. Now, in some cases, the unit will come with a TPM module. Right now, officially, Microsoft wants 2.0, but unofficially, they will accept a 1.2 TPM module. There are umpteen different versions because they have different pinouts for plugging it into a motherboard. Or if you get the right CPU chip, it's built onto the CPU chip, but not all of them have that feature. You might also need to do a BIOS update to be able to turn that TPM virtualization on in the CPU chip. I have already done this, so I know what I'm talking about. And this also applies to Dell. Optiplex, they have the 3000, 5000, 7000, and 9000. It's the last 2 numbers that are critical. You have to have a 60 or higher number in that, like a 3060, a 5060, or a 7060, etc., to be an 11 capable machine. Anything earlier than that, and this applies to G2, G3, HP Elite Desk 800s, are not compliant with 11. Yeah, they're good for a Windows 10 until Windows 10 dies, and you unless you want to keep running with it anyhow. Yeah, they can be used for Linux, but they're realistic machines that you can get. Sometimes if you do good shopping, you can get it real cheap. They also sell total units, but they vary all over the place on price. But I would say $100 to $150 for a full working machine that's 11 compliant. as long as you understand you're buying an HP Elite Desk 800 G4 or G5 machine or higher. The higher the number goes, the higher the processor numbers go from Intel. That's kind of a bad thing. Now, every motherboard that is created handles 2 generations of CPU chips. So let's take the HP. A G4 or a G5 handle an 8th or 9th gen CPU chip from Intel. That's compliant. If it's if you got the TPM either on the motherboard or in the CPU chip. If you have a G321 version, that's non-compliant. It'll work for 10, it'll work for Linux, but it will not work for 11 unless it's unsupported version. And there's a lot of tricks to doing that and a lot of headaches. And most people are not going to mess with it. So you can buy running units. They don't have much of any kind of a warranty with them. Trust me on that. Especially for those that don't have CPU, memory, or drive. A lot of them will say no returns. Once you bought it, that's it. You own it.
Why would you buy a system without a CPU in it? I could see not buying one with no. But just in theory.
Take this machine.
But why go through the effort of buying a box without a CPU?
Okay. Because I don't want to buy a lot of what is offered out there on the market. There are a lot of low-end stuff, and it's not worth it. If I
but Tim, you're more technical.
I understand that.
Than everybody else is. So as the average, I'm being the devil's advocate here.
I
As the average consumer, why would the average consumer in this group want to buy a box without at least a piece of a CPU in it?
Because it's cheaper that way. And I can get exactly what I want, and I can have it built the way I want it to be able to be satisfied with what I bought.
Okay. That's going back to you have a higher technical knowledge than a lot of the other attendees may have. And are they willing to go that route to go and figure out what CPU to use? Because there's various amounts of CPUs, or I'm saying CPUs are paired up to motherboards. So you got to make sure you get the right CPU for a motherboard.
Well, that again gets like in the HP 800 Elite Desktop. A G4 and a G5 only handle 8th and 9th generation Intel chips, period. And it doesn't matter whether it's an i3, i5, i7. I don't think anybody's going to put an i9 in. I think you got to have your psychiatric condition checked if you want to try an i9. But in general, those 3 processors, but there's a lot of different versions of the same processor. So you got to know the numbers. This information's out on the internet. I guarantee you, because I look it up. I don't know all the numbers. I go out and I look, and I'll give you an example. If Sanford likes i7s, okay. If I was going to get one of these G4, G5 HP machines, the thing I would be looking for is an i7-8700. And that will give me what I need. And in my case, I get the K version. So it's an 8700K. And that means if I want to, I can overclock the damn thing. I have never done that, but I could if I wanted to. But I get 6 cores. I get 2 threads per core. So it looks like there's 12 cores. Gives you lots of capability. And also I have a 9th gen i5. It's a i5-9600K. But in the 9th gen, they don't have hyper-threading. So all I get is 4 cores. That's it. So you have to know these little tricks. You gotta be able to read between the lines on some of this stuff. It's like most things in life. If you don't read what's there, you have no idea what you're agreeing with. That includes your EULA licenses for all your software. How many of you have read your EULA licenses and know exactly what you are?
Okay, wait. There is no point in reading the EULAs because it is 100% shifted towards the company that's selling you the software. And the only choice you have is, I don't want to use this, or I do.
Right.
You have no in between. Every one of them is going to tell you you have to, if you're going to sue them, you have to go to arbitration and all this other stuff.
That's right.
EULA's reading them is just like pointless now because there's nothing in there to protect the consumer. It's all slated towards the company that hired the lawyers to write the software, to write these things. And in many cases, you don't get to decide what the EULA is or even see it until you open the box. And now you're
most of our stuff is downloaded. You can see the EULA before you even download.
okay.
But here's the thing. You can take your AI, pop the EULA into there and say summarize and get back a shorter, more readable version of what the hell you're trying to agree to. And if you don't like what the EULA says in that summary, go find something else that will do the same basic thing that you can agree with.
Unless it's something that's the only answer, like Windows.
Understood.
Like Windows or Google.
You got two other choices. You got Apple and you got Linux.
I'm just making examples, light examples of you don't necessarily have choices as much as we'd like. You basically, if you want to drive down this road and that's the only way to go through to get from point A to point B, then you're going to have to pay the toll.
Right.
Unless you're Tim. But
no.
When you're talking about open source software, if there is an open source thing that'll do pretty much what you want, there are always about 5 or 6 different alternatives.
Right.
If you have 4 of those 6 on your PC, you might be able to cobble together most of what the big program does, what the commercial program does.
Right.
I've done that in Linux.
And when it comes to choices, Linux has got so many choices, nobody can figure out what they want to do.
Well, many of us who have used Linux for a while settle in on certain areas we like, certain types.
But I mean, in general, for people who are not very familiar with Linux, when you start covering a lot of the Linux stuff, it's bewildering as hell, and everybody knows it is. And that's because you go from little choice, like under Windows and Apple, to so much choice, you have no idea what one to deal with. It's worse than going out and I want a new car. Okay, I want this certain color. I want certain features in the car. But whose make, model, engine, whether it's a gas only, gas hybrid, electric hybrid, or full electric are all choices. And it gets so crazy. It's hell to figure out what the hell is it that we want to have in our next car. If we're going to.
There are sites like DistroWatch and several well-known Linux sites that are aimed at ordinary users, which do a very good job of summarizing things. And there are sites like Make Use Of and Ars Technica, which do cover Linux, even though they're not primarily Linux focused. But even in Windows, you can usually find some freeware that will have some of the features that you want. And then another piece of freeware has some more features. And you might have 3 or 4 different programs, but since you didn't have to pay anything for them, or you just made a donation minimal donation, it didn't really cost you as much as the full version of, let's say, Photoshop or Microsoft Office. And yet you've got a lot of the functionality that you would have had.
And that's the
And
thing with Microsoft and Apple, more and more software developed under Linux is going cross-platform to Microsoft Windows and Apple. So you may be, whether you realize it or not, running some pieces of software on your Windows or Apple Mac system that are from the Linux world. They cost nothing or very, very little.
and there has been freeware that was developed specifically for Windows and then went the other direction to Linux.
Okay, we need to move on from this. Actually, we're almost done for the evening. Is there any last wrap up you want to make to this, Tim?
Offhand, if somebody wants to try the idea, you can contact me, Nat, and I can give you some tips, Nat. It's just a case where most of what I get is off of eBay. So, and I've had good luck with it so far. I think I've only had 1 or 2 episodes where I was dissatisfied with whatever I've got. I've got well in excess of 700 purchases over about a 15 to 20 year period. So I've done pretty damn good.
Okay. Anyone else have any last comments or questions for tonight's meeting? I am looking for presenters. I should have asked this in the beginning, but if anyone would like to step forward and be a presenter. Jim, I know Jim Freeberg, I'm sure you got something you would love to present to our group at the next meeting. No. And I could ask James, but James is too busy. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording here. Has anyone else got any last comments for the meeting? Nope. Okay. And